I really went into serious detail when building this presentation, studying like the top billionaires, Alex Hormozi, Iman Ghazi, like how these guys present themselves and how they actually operate. Because anyone can really learn the skills, right, to be successful, but it's like, how do you operate at the highest level and get as much done in a short amount of time? You want to be quicker. Everyone knows that speed is the most important thing in business, so let's get into it. So how to think like a billionaire and build a meta system that prints money. So this is where success actually starts. So mind, thoughts, action, and results. Like this is the whole framework of actually how to achieve success. So thoughts create execution. So whatever you think about, I don't know if you guys noticed, there's like this most common analogy that if you think of seeing a red car, you're probably going to see it more when you're driving. It's the more you think about your goals and the more it's constantly on your mind, the more it's actually to come into fruition. And execution creates outcome. So if you guys have an idea that's pressing, you know you need to take action on, just take action on it with speed, because chances are people are going to copy it if it's a good idea. And mind is the source of the code. So 5 layers of the billionaire mind. So through all my studying of very highly successful people, these are the exact principles that they define when actually thinking about life and their business. So the first one is mental awareness, being aware of your inputs daily and what you guys are actually doing to succeed and to push. Like everything you have to do is towards moving the needle. That's all the tasks that you guys are actually implementing. So this is a really important section. Mental cognition, like what are you putting into your body? And this is so standard. What are you actually putting into your body to ensure that you guys operate at the highest level? Are you eating like crap? Are you eating healthy? Are you going to the gym? These are all factors that seem cliche, but they play a massive factor in actually winning in your business. Business principles. So what I mean by business principles is selling with honesty. There's so many people in today's day and age, like the Miami core seller, etc., that completely lie to people about what they can offer, fake results. And we see downfalls from creators, I'm not going to name their name, but we see these downfalls of them actually not being able to pay people, scamming their students. So in any business model that you guys are in, you need to sell with honesty, because your reputation takes 10 years to build and 10 seconds to destroy. So that's a very important principle there. Business discipline. So just like sports, I don't know if, I'm pretty sure most of everyone has been in sports, but the disciplines that it takes to maybe sacrifice not going out that night, maybe sacrificing having to study, learning this extra skill, that's what it's really gonna take to propel you to the next level. Because business, I personally think, you guys can disagree with me, entrepreneurship is the hardest sport in the world. I truly, truly believe that, and there's a reason you can do it to the end of your life. And you're constantly competing with people, like if we're all young, we're constantly competing with people 3 times our age. So we're not thinking of we're competing against each other, we're competing against these monsters and Goliaths in business that have been doing billions in sales. Like, how do we stand out? And that's the reason why I got into Meta. Because you can actually compete with people spending millions of dollars a month on Google, Yelp, etc. with targeted meta ads. And that's why I got into it, and I'm so passionate about helping other businesses succeed with that. The processes and tools. So we're actually going to go into their exact billionaire thought process on how they actually think about life and their business together. Layer 1, so we're going to go into mental awareness. So your beliefs, patterns, identity, impulses, and attention span are extremely important. Callie touched a lot on how our attention span is crap because of short form content. So something I love thinking about and a framework that I think everyone can utilize is reading books. And I'll tell you why. Where do you think everyone gets their information? From social media, scrolling. So who do you think is gonna take the time to sit down and read an entire book on marketing, sales, psychology, whatever industry you're in, real estate, tax savings, whatever. They're not gonna take the time to do that because their attention span is so bad. So that differentiates you on the knowledge gap of 99% of the people. You can't build a business with the same identity that kills your productivity. So what do I mean by that? The same person you used to be, a lot of people in here probably went through some sort of transformation. I know I did. I wasn't always where, like in terms of the mindset where I am today. I was not on the right path, and when I got on that right path, I understood that I can't take the same habits that I did and translate it to business. So I in turn completely switched the framework of how I think, which is what I'm gonna go over on the next couple of slides, and it completely changed my life. So layer 2, mental cognition. So the billionaire advantage is problem solving, pattern recognition, prioritization, decision speed, planning. If X, then Y. So it's not education, it's cognition. So if this is gonna move the needle, there should be no alternatives on why I should do this other thing. Like your day-to-day tasks, like everyone here is just write down your to-do list. Like these are the only things that you should be focusing on, and then once you get that done completely, then you could go to your next tasks. Because these are the things that's actually gonna move the needle in the business. And any other idea, what I like to do is, I have a million good ideas a day. I get them most in the shower. But I have a million good ideas a day, and what I do is they're not necessarily going to move the needle because I'm making progress in this part of my business and I get this amazing idea and I start working there. My energy that's already working on that part of the business is transferred to a different part of that business. So it's taking away from what's already working, and it's something called shiny object syndrome, which is definitely an enemy of entrepreneurs. So business principles. So obviously everyone knows in business, if you knew what to do to make $1 billion, you had the knowledge to do it, and you knew it was hard, wouldn't you go do it? But the problem with business is you don't have the education to know how to do that. And you still know it's hard. You have to be so hyper-focused on learning and become obsessed with being a student. Long-term cash flow and short-term profit. So a lot of people are talking about 30-day results. Oh, I made 30K this month, I made 50K this month. Like 30 days is nothing. Like we have to look at a way larger time frame, and that's what I noticed with studying hyper-successful people is they don't think on these 30-day time frames, they think on these year time frames, 5-year time frames. And an exercise that I'm gonna propose everyone do is actually I have something called a goal doc, and I've mapped out how I want my life to look 3 years in advance. So I've wrote down, this was one of my goals, to host a mastermind. I'm doing that. I wrote that down January 1st of 2025. I have revenue goals for the past 3 years. And this is not a pointless exercise because it's like you're really thinking in not just 30-day increments, but what moves can I make today on the chess table that are gonna set me up 3 years from now? Because something that I really prioritize is we look at all these Miami course sellers, etc. Do you really think that business is gonna be around in 10 years? Probably not. So whatever you're building, you really have to have emphasis on, obviously AI is coming in the mix. Is this gonna be around in 10 years? Because what are you gonna do if you spend your entire life building something and it gets taken over by AI or this industry, there's an easier way to do whatever your service is. What are you gonna do then? So have a hyper fixation and focus on, is my business gonna be around in 10 years? Am I building something right now that people are gonna actually utilize after me? That's how I think of it, and that's how you actually build a strong business. So first principles, then trends. Your beliefs decide your business model. So obviously everyone that goes into business, if you're a service-based business, if you're selling an info product, people buy, just like from Kelly said, from your personality and your beliefs. The more you share that online, the more you share that in terms of content, the more relatable you'll be in terms of how they actually think of you and that trust. And he brought up something about giving that free value. And I know you guys are starting the Agent Lab RE, shout out Kenise and Akia, but they're building this info product, and something that we're gonna focus on is building a free training. And this eliminates the sales call, right? So what do I mean by that? You're giving hours of free value to build that trust so they already trust you. They're already getting on the call way warmer than they were if they didn't really know how the process worked. What we're gonna learn today, and obviously what you must learn to really just succeed in business, I don't care what business model you're in, you're gonna have to learn marketing, you're gonna have to master sales, and these 2 points right here are extremely important. You can't do one without the other. If you don't know how to sell, you do not know how to market, because sales is one-to-one if we're just on a sales call, and marketing is one-to-many. So if you don't know how to sell individually and you don't master the psychology of sales, how are you about to sell to millions of people while marketing? It's not gonna work. So really understanding that you have to master the skill of sales to actually be able to even market. You're not gonna qualify to market if you don't know how to sell. And you actually have to refine your product. Your product has to actually help people and be able to serve, whether that's a service, info product, whether it's an actual physical product like a hoodie. Like, see how people resonate with it. Start with giving free stuff, start with giving free value, whatever that product is or service that you sell. Finance, so this is great. I added this in because Belen and her partner are gonna be giving a great tax presentation after the Q&A on how to actually save. So a lot of people, especially, and the reason I added this in is because we're all very young. Right? A lot of us, Callie's 19, Dero's 21, they're making a lot of money. So a lot of people go broke spending on cars, spending it on fancy outfits, whatever. So having your finances in check will literally secure you, because who knows, you might not get lucky like this again, like we talked about. Is this gonna be around in 10 years? Management, this is about building teams. We'll go over this a little bit later, but having a strong team around you and understanding that you can't do everything alone. You can't, it's not even possible. Like, you have to understand and be comfortable with outsourcing to people that you actually trust. Data. So Meta is a data soldier. We'll go into that in a second, but data is the only thing you can really go off of in a business. Like, this is how you're gonna market, this is how you're gonna sell. Data coming from your setters, closers. You're not actually gonna be able to grow if you don't know what's coming in from the data. Understand how to have pattern recognition and understand that data is new digital gold, right? Because data is what's gonna allow you to market. It's what's gonna allow you to find your prospecting and actually sell that service. Most people start here. This is where they fail. So this is the tools. So tools are only useful if the operator has a mindset and the principles of scale. So when you're hiring out, whether that's VAs from another country, whether that's internally in your business, you can't hire out if you don't understand how you operate. I always teach that when you're just starting a certain business model, like, know how you operate. If I'm talking to a new editor, a filmer, like I have to actually be in the field doing that myself so I understand how to teach them how to do it. You know what I mean? If you can't just outsource people and go based on their will, you have to be able to give them direction and understand this is my process. Like this is how I do it. This is how they're going to do it too. It'll make it easier to teach. And we're going to go into a little bit as well about SOPs, just standard operating procedures, how we can actually build them today on Notion. It's a very important thing. Notion is basically, I have it for all my new employees. Like they get into Notion, they're able to actually read all the notes I have on how exactly I want edited, examples from past clients, examples of ads we like, and they just learn it themselves. It took me an hour of my time to film like 10 plus videos on how we operate, right? How I want this edited, how I want this filmed, etc. It saves me as a business owner months of time where I actually have to go out and train them. So high performance productivity, this is this section. This is how to actually be productive, like really in the framework of a billionaire. Because I don't know if you guys noticed, but the richer people are, it's almost like the less they work. And I always wondered about that, so we're gonna get into that. Grinding harder is not always the answer, right? You can outsource tasks. The more you outsource and the more you're comfortable with outsourcing your business, the more it'll free up your time so you as a business owner can do what you do best, which is actually grow the business. And I know a lot of young entrepreneurs and like early business owners who are kind of stingy about keeping it in their ways, keeping the employees like internal and keeping their team lean because they want more profit. Your 50K a month self, your 10K a month self is not going to be sitting down and editing a video. They're not going to be sitting down and recording an entire course. They're not going to be doing that because that's not your specialty. Like I just said earlier, you have to know your strengths and be able to outsource around that, and that'll like bring you up, because like you have to think in the framework of your $1 billion self, your $1 million a month self, and understand, would they be doing this? And always ask yourself that. So the billionaire focus filter. So I want you guys to ask yourself this daily. What matters? Why does it matter? What happens if I don't do this? How can I do it simpler? So I'm always trying to simplify processes. I don't have any setters anymore, and setters are for people who don't understand what social media is, in terms of like lead gen on social media. It's when you get a lead from an ad, you get a lead from a follower, and I now have AI integrate and actually book them into my calendar. I'm trying to make it way simpler, way easier for them to actually get on the phone with me. And most people fail from miscalculated effort, not lack of action. So this just means they're putting too much effort into one singular thing where they could easily outsource. I know so many people are spending 6 hours a day editing, 6 hours a day filming their own stuff. Those 6 hours, if you're a business owner, like that's so much time for you during the day that you can be growing your business and actually working on landing new clients. So growth comes from deleting low impact tasks, firing wrong actions, ignoring noise. Focus drives sales. Scale drives revenue, obviously. And one thing you have as a business owner is leverage. I'll stand by this every single day. Leverage is the most important thing you could have, and I'll give an example. If I have 3 editors and 3 clients, I'm completely taken out of that process. I have leverage now to where I can sleep and the work's getting done. I don't have to stay up to actually work on that, and I can actually be focusing on getting more clients. So as a business, utilizing social media, having, like Callie said, having posts go up every day, and it's getting views in your sleep. You're getting views in your sleep. So the more leverage you can use, I'm not saying build a massive team, just understand where you can utilize that leverage in yourself, because leverage is the most powerful thing you can have as a business owner. So limiting beliefs and self-performance debugging. Identify the malware. So ask yourself, what do I avoid? What excuse do I defend? And where do I blame external instead of internal? The more you can take accountability and understand that everything is your fault. If you make money, it's your fault. If you don't make money, it's your fault. So the more accountability you can take in your business, the better and quicker you can actually get to the next level, because everything is your fault, whether you make money or not. So replace with evidence, not emotion. So ads don't work for my niche. The better belief is let's verify what the numbers say. So we're gonna get into this in a second about Meta, but Meta is a data soldier. So if something's not working, just like both of them say, for the past 4 months, change it. Like look at the data. That's why I just said earlier, data is the most important thing. If something's not working, you're getting no sales, look at the data. Why is it not working, right? And I always like to say this, I'd rather fail as quick as I can so I could win as quick as I can, because I just look at the data. Like failure is the best teacher you can have, and don't look at failure as a burden, look at it as a growth tool.